Hey everyone, this is Coach Marc Nolan, and welcome back to another episode of Don't Outkick Your Coverage, the only 100% podcast solely dedicated to those dedicated high school parents and yes, the high school athletes. Today, we're really going to talk about the second part of our third-part series around the recruiting ride, which is what we're calling it. So here we go. Let's jump into it. Today's podcast is called Foreign-Born Athletes and the Scholarship Squeeze Play. Yes, let's get into this issue. To recap on number one, we did talk about where a lot of things are changing /NIL. And as of this podcast, even two new rules by the NCAA are trying to close some more loopholes, but we'll get to that one later. But today, it's really about the global roster takeover of the high school sports scholarship athlete. Because today it's not really just about what you pay, it's who takes your kid's spot. Foreign born, older athletes are winning the game. For instance, there's over 30,000. Yes, 30,000 foreign born athletes, moms and dads, in the United States right now, currently playing in NCAA sports. So what does that mean, to you as parents and athletes? Well, we're going to get into a little bit, but also to talk about why it's so important for you to look at your financial structure before you take to all those camps again. So, one of the things I want to talk about, this really isn't recruiting anymore. It's like the Survivor Series, roster edition. And your kid didn't get voted off the island. He just never got invited on it. And this is what I mean. The NCAA's policy chaos continues around the $2.8 billion settlement, the roster caps. For instance, in football, there's 105 rosters right now. Actually, it used to be 105, and they changed it back in the 70s and then 80s and 90s. So there's fewer spots now. There's fewer spots from the kids that go into the transfer portal. Kids, I don't want to call them kids. I don't want to call a 28-year-old person going into the transfer portal a kid. And what's really happening is these coaches in every major sport. And I know moms and dads, you listen to ESPN or look at a lot of the different things out there. You'll hear these coaches talk about they really do want that older athlete. They want the older athlete who appears to have better grades, been around the block for a while, not missing mom and dad, all those things. Okay. And then they had the potential to help them out. I mean, again, if you look at a lot of the schools last year, they all had a lot of money. They all had a lot of money at guys transferring in. And this twice a year transfer policy is just continued insanity. And why I think you're going to continue to see more and more college coaches leave the college ranks and go into the NFL. I mean, at least there's some salary cap issues that go on in the NFL, and they have a 53-man roster cap. But we got to have 105 guys in college. Crazy as that may seem, right? So let's get into a little bit about the rise of the foreign athlete. Now, first of all, let's understand this is not new. The foreign-born athlete has been coming to the United States and playing different sports, since the mid-'60s, early '70s. Traditionally, they came in the lower levels. They started out in the JUCOs and the NAIA schools, and they came in on the soccer side of the house and, badminton and cricket and all the other school sports that were played. But now it's no longer just those JUCOs that are coming in. These are all FBS D1 kind of players that are coming in. I mean, they're coming from all over the place. For instance, as many of you know, there's a big case that's, I think, now going to be a class action suit against some of the things going on with Pro Kick Australia. And then, of course, you got Europe and you got Canada in the football side of the house. And you got the older position-ready athletes who are flooding the U.S. rosters. I mean, it's almost embarrassing. Even Notre Dame a couple of years ago, I called out their human resource people because they wouldn't publicize the date of the foreign-born athletes coming over. They'd have the athletes' dates of all the U.S. kids in there, but they would never show the foreign-born athletes' dates. I always thought that was kind of funny. There's a huge amount of growing need that's going. There's a huge amount of growing issues that are happening inside of Congress around the F1 and J1 visas that are growing. There was a Democratic congressman out of North Carolina, Valerie Forshey, and this guy, Representative Republican Mike Flood, that wanted to come up with NIL money for foreign-born athletes. Again, it's always been against the rules, but they don't like those rules. This is why Congress is the last place to put any kind of jurisdiction around NIL. I mean, there's corruption all over the place. Well, there's corruption inside of Congress anyway, but now when you add the F1 and J1 visas that are growing across the United States, it's getting to be insane. So hopefully we can get Congress to stay out of it, and let's not get them too involved. For those parents who don't really go like, oh, it's not really a big issue, Coach Nolan, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. Well, take a listen to this. Just take a listen to this. Out of that 30,000, yes, 30,000 U.S. athletes. That's about 10%, by the way, of the 400,000 that go in every year in America. In men's tennis, 60% plus are international students. So that means if your son is going to be the next Arthur Ashe or somebody like that, guess what? He's probably not going to get that slot anymore. In men's soccer, 55%. 55% of the players playing in college soccer right now in the United States are foreign-born athletes. Track and field's got about 30% who are foreign-born athletes. And then, of course, they come in, they compete, they go to Auburn or Alabama or Georgia and win the SEC championship. Then they go back to wherever, Guyana, and they compete at the Olympics. And, they beat our guys again. So it's kind of funny. And, of course, as I mentioned before, you've got in football, you got the Aussie punters and you got the Euro kickers. Nothing wrong with those kind of things if they're done right, but they're not being done right. They're done really kind of sneaky. We even have college coaches now who profess that they love the U.S. kids. They want to help them be successful, and they go to training camps and everything else. And then what do these coaches do? They fly over the pond, across the pond, and they have a camp. They have a camp with 75, 80, 100 people, right? Teaching them all the things that we do here in the United States. And then when they come back here, they have film on every one of those kids. They have data on every one of those kids. So guess what, moms and dads? For those of you who are paying for all those camps, for little Johnny and little Jane to go to, right? That $400, $500, $600, $700 camp that you're spending into, and they're taking that money in, these camp directors, and then they're going overseas to recruit the talent against you. Man, oh man, if I was a parent, that would really tick me off. But look, you're probably not going to do anything about it because you don't want to upset, Johnny's 4.5-star ranking right now. I get it. But it's going to be more evident as I see it every week. I see it every month. I see it in every sport. That is just getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And yes, coaches do want to plug and play. They want the transfers because that's what they want to have. The ROI is no longer about just return on investment. It really should be called ROPI, return on playing immediately, because that's what they want. These coaches don't care about the development. I mean, they're lying if they do, because their salaries depend on them to win. The back end bonuses of every one of these coaches gets a huge percentage for when they win. They win the SEC championship, they get more cash. They win a bowl game, they get more cash. They have some player development issues, they get more cash. That's the reason why the rise of the general manager now. Never had it before in football, college football, never had general managers. All of a sudden now we got general managers. Oh yeah, of course, most of them are all lawyers. Who shouldn't surprise anyone, right? And who does this affect? This affects the high school seniors. The high school juniors, the sophomores, and even the freshmen. So my question then becomes to everyone that's out there, what are you going to do, moms and dads? I harp on many of the guys that I train that they got to get bigger, faster, and stronger. Sometimes they listen to me, sometimes they don't. I mean, you got some great kids out there that have gained 35, 45 pounds over a year after we've been training. And those people those young men are having great success because they are getting bigger, faster, and stronger, right? They can now compete against a college guy, maybe that's 1 or 2 years older than them. Okay. That's what they're doing. So this is one of the things that we have to understand, moms and dads. Scholarships aren't earned anymore. They're allocated like assets. I talked about this before. College athletes is a big business. The National Cartel Athletic Association has always been about business first. They don't care about the kids. They never have cared about the kids. They didn't care when I played. They didn't care in the 40s. They didn't care about the 50s. And they certainly don't care about the high school athletes right now. They're called the National Collegiate Athletic Association. So understand that National Federation of High School Sports, they don't want to get involved. They want to just push you out, get you through the system in the college so they can keep on putting you through the mill. That's what they're doing. And you know what? This is getting to be an open casting call. But they're rolling to the guy flown in on a private jet. And you're going to see it happen more. So I tried to show you these sound bites and I try to give you these alarms a little bit, moms and dads, so you can appreciate when I'm out there harping about you got to get bigger, you got to get faster, you got to get stronger. I also mean that because you really don't understand the speed of play when you get to college. It's almost like, sitting in your little stadium of 1,000 people and then all of a sudden sitting in a stadium of 100,000 people. It's just a different event. It's a different environment. Okay. And what many of us coaches that I talk to, private coaches that I talk to weekly, really weekly, we talk about how do we get these kids to understand the dynamics? How do we get them to understand that unless you gain that 20, 25, 30, 35 pounds, right? And you still are 140 pounds by the time you're senior year, you're just not going to be able to compete. You're not going to compete against the athlete who might be 22 or 23 years old, who might have 30 or 40 pounds on you. And that's why we keep talking about going back to the eye test, going back to the eye test. But you know what? Moms and dads, you have got to stay on top of your sons and daughters, boys and girls. You've got to stay on top of yourself because I know you think that you want to climb the ladder of the stars, but if you're not gaining the weight, if you're not putting all those physical attributes into your program, and yes, your mental attributes, getting more rest, understanding the dynamics of how to work on the mental game, it's not going to help you out. And again, as I said before, when we talk about, this like the Survivor series, the TV series or monster, it's really not a game. I mean, it's really survival. You've spent, let's say, as I talked about last time, let's say you spent 20, 30, or $40,000 over the last 7 or 8 years getting Johnny or Jamie to this point where they're going to get a scholarship offer. And let's say there's 105 roster spots, or in Survivor, there's 105 torches. There's weekly eliminations. And that's why I keep on harping on all you guys, the athletes, to understand that the returners that are coming in are the internationals. They are probably hungrier than you are. I hate to say that, but they are. Now, they might be older than you. They may have 1 or 2 children already, but they are, in fact, hungrier. You have to find out how hungry are you going to be in this role of trying to be a college athlete, not a high school athlete. You got to look beyond this right now. Like one of the things I talk to the guys about that I train is you got to look beyond the goalpost. You got to pick that spot way far away. Don't focus on the goalpost. You have got to be, as a high school athlete, you've got to start looking beyond the goalpost, because beyond the goalpost is where you've got to get to. And if you can't get there, then I would tell you, then reset your expectations. Because too many of you, way too many of you, and that includes moms and dads, you believe your son or daughter is a 5-star athlete. That's great. Doesn't really have any bearing on the facts, because you probably have never seen 1,000 athletes or 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 athletes to know what a 5-star athlete looks like, or maybe you have. Most of you don't. But in this episode, all I'm trying to bring out to you, parents, and to the high school kids, is a very simple process. You got to not wait. You can't wait and wait and wait and go, oh, well, I'm not going to work out today. I'll go out tomorrow. No, I'm not going to work out today. My girlfriend's calling me. I can't go out today. I got to go. I got to go see my boys. I got to go hang out with my friends, right? You have to build the opportunity now because that's what coaches are looking for. They're looking for student athletes who are building upon their opportunity now. And that's one of the things that we talk about with NIL. To get yourselves into a position in high school to start building on those opportunities because you know what? It's coming. The NIL down the high school athletes is coming. I mean, the good news is, moms and dads, we're rolling out our NIL high school version playbook, the NIL playbook for high school parents on November 1st. So we're excited about that. And guess what? If you still think that the strategy that you have been employing with going to the camps, putting that tweet out there once in a while or going to social media and uploading your huddle film, if you really honestly believe that is the way you're going to get scholarships, you don't know the game. You just don't know the game. And you're going to get caught up in all the short-term things that we do, meaning posting, texting, and not getting serious. And that's why I fail to understand why parents won't become much more serious with their discussions with their sons and daughters about how serious is this. Put it down in front of them. Put down how much money you guys have spent on the recruiting standpoint. And just think if you would have started earlier with getting more serious. Because you know what? The way of recruiting, the old way of recruiting is never coming back. Take my word for it. If you still think that putting the videos out there, sending them out to, 110, 120 coaches out there, and they're going to get back with you, you're lost. Now, it's a fake thing to think about that. It's like fake followers. It's just not going to happen. Recruiting, again, is not coming back. Not in the way that we talked about it back in the 60s and 70s and 80s and even 90s. The NCAA has changed that. NCAA has made sure that, you're not going to be in their spotlight. They got too many things going on. They got NIL. They got the transfer portal. That's what they want. They got TV revenue going on. That's what they want. So you know what? It's time to go back to the basics. It's time to go back to basics. If your son weighs 150 pounds, put a plan together to get to him. Let's say he's 150 pounds by his freshman year. Let's do 15 pounds every year. Sophomore year, 165. Junior year, 180. Senior year, 195. And track that. Whatever that number is, just track that. Because that's what, again, coaches are looking for. Not just in football, but in every sport. So the last part of this episode, this 3-part series, this is the second part of it. I just wanted to say one thing to you moms and dads out there. When your son or daughter is texting or talking and having discussions with these head coaches or assistant coaches or special teams coaches or GAs, whoever they are, and the scholarship doesn't come down, but they keep on telling you, you're the guy, you're the guy, you're the guy. You have to understand something. You didn't get outplayed. You got outaged. You got outfunded. And you got out recruited. They were the 3 things that you didn't see coming. And all I can tell you to do, if you don't think that's the truest case going on, look at every year post NIL, what has happened to the high school athlete. Look at all the opportunities that go on for every sport in high school. It's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And that's why it's important for me to call out the foreign-born students, the F1 visas, the J1 visas, and again, the transfer portals. Those kids really are the ones who are going to make a name for themselves. And I hope to God that every one of you that's listening on this podcast, and I do appreciate everyone that likes and comments and shares these podcasts. It's important to me. You may not think it is, but I spend a lot of time every week just trying to educate the parents. Sometimes you can't educate the kids because they know everything, right? But that's a different discussion for a different day. Well, so With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to end on this episode of Don't Outkick Your Coverage. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you'll like, share, and comment, because it really does. It really does. The episodes that we do and the episodes I do, I don't just roll out of bed and decide to do it. It takes me a lot of time. You may not care about that, but I do it for you. I'm doing it for the high school athletes. I'm doing it for the parents. And I certainly hope you can take all this in and take some actionable items away from this. As like I said before, ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything that we can do, anything that I can do, feel free to reach out to me at mnolan@thekickerzone.com or at my cell phone, which is area code 678-200-7540. And even if it's just a couple questions, you may have a question or two for me and say, hey, Coach Nolan, can I ask you about this? This past year, I have had, I think my last count before our daughter's wedding, this past year, this is already October, started in January, I've had over 725 conversations with parents about recruiting. 725. Then they usually last about anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour long. So again, if you have any questions that I might be able to answer, give me a call. I would tell you to set it up on Calendly, but I'm just too inundated right now with all the things going on. So feel free to reach out to me. If I can help you out, set up a call. Doesn't cost you anything, and be glad to help you out. Okay? So until next time, and our next episode of our podcast is going to be called Jumbotrons, Jet Lag, and 5-Star Luxury Hotels, NIL versus the ice cream shop. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for being part of our Don't Outkick Your Coverage podcast. And I hope you all have a great day. And to everyone playing this current week, good luck to you out there on the game that you love and the sport that you hope to play in college. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.